All right, everybody, come on in. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk with Maggie and Lucy. Hi, I am Maggie. Hi, Lucy. Maggie, the substitute teacher. You may know me for my cooking channel. I make food and femininity content. Together with Lucy, we are the proud founders of the Finishing School for the Modern Woman, where we teach ladies of all ages how to be the best version of themselves, leading with femininity, elegance, and etiquette. We just wrapped up our fourth intake. Cannot believe we had a wonderful, wonderful guest speaker. But what we like to do to give back is to come out here with you all a couple times a week and give you our perspective as two older women. And we react to relationship content, hoping that we can learn from it. So Lucy, please introduce yourself and let us know, what are we reacting to today?
Hi, Maggie. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jürgen. Peter. First in line, first participant coming in. I love it. So yes, I'm Lucy. I have a small channel that has content about femininity, elegance, and things that impact women over a certain age. And if you also want to learn some Spanish, I have basics in Spanish, old videos that take you through Basics 101 through the end. But today we're going to be seeing a Dr. Taraban video, and it's about how men can ruin their relationships, because I say that men are incredibly noble and they give us a lot of grace, and that nobility and grace sometimes gets them into some trouble, because they want to be, again, our heroes, and especially for those women that do not earn that respect or that characteristic of men about being our heroes.
Absolutely. So we are going to be reacting to a video called Creating a Monster: How Men Ruin Their Relationships. I'll give you all your two disclaimers because we believe the older women should teach the young. So we are going to listen to Dr. Taraban talk to men and see what we can glean from it. So again, Lucy and I are older women who married young. That's what we promote. If you want to prioritize it in your 20s, absolutely. We believe in marriage and family combined. We have over 40 years of marriage experience. So maybe you can learn something here if a traditional relationship is what you want. If you want something different, totally fine. You just might not be happy over here. And as always, I've linked the video in the description if you want to watch it without our commentary. So this is a shorter one. It's a 12-minute video. So without further ado, we're going to go right on in and see what Dr. Taraban has to say.
Okay, hold on. Before you start the video,
yes,
there's going to be some language used. So be sure that if you have kids around or family members around, you have your headset on, or maybe you play it when other people are not around, because I think he goes in a couple of times. It's a little embarrassing, but you know, he's talking. It's a man talking to other men.
Absolutely. And I don't even have to say it, but I will say it. This is why, ladies, we are not equal. We are not the same. We're equally valued, but we're very different. So thank you for the warning, and buckle up. Let's see what he says.
Orion Taraban, and this is Psychax, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is creating. Over the duration of my career, I've done a lot of consultations with a lot of different men, and many have spoken to me about their unsatisfactory marriages and relationships. And this has allowed.
It's Wing Wednesday. We got some new
That's
wing
on
flavors.
me. Hold on.
First, some clean chicken.
Turn down.
I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is Psychax, Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is creating a monster. Over the duration of my career, I've done a lot of consultations with a lot of different men, and many have spoken to me about their unsatisfactory marriages and relationships. And this has allowed me to discover points of convergence throughout most of their cases. And I want to share some of my findings with you today. First and foremost, I've discovered that bad relationships are almost always based on poor selection. I cannot say this enough. You can't have any relationship with anyone There's a whole chapter of my book on this concept alone. You can only have certain kinds of relationships with certain kinds of people. For whatever reason, certain people are not temperamentally or emotionally or psychologically able to have stable, peaceful, loving, long-term relationships. And it's not your job to figure out why or how to fix them so you can get what you want from them. If you insist that you should be able to have the relationship you want with the person you want to have it with, independent of whether or not that person can emotionally or psychologically do so, then, my friend, you're on the path of pain. It won't.
All right, I wanted to stop here and unpack this one because I think it can apply to us as well. Sorry for the fingers there. I wanted to turn down the resolution. I think I've discovered what was making it skip before. So, ladies, Dr. Taraban is telling the men, you cannot have a relationship with just anybody. And ladies, you hear us talk about it here. You have to decide before you're in a relationship if you're even built for that. Lucy and I have talked a lot about what being in a real relationship requires. And the painful truth is, and this is something that I had to learn, my man had to get on me. He was like, why do you think everybody's a wife? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a bit harsh. But ladies, the truth is, men know how to look for certain characteristics, and they compartmentalize us very quickly. This is a wife, and this is everybody else. And the everybody else, like I always say, it doesn't make you a bad person. You could be a good business contact. You could be a good, I don't know, networker. You could be, as they say, the fun girl. You could be any of those things, but you have to decide who you want to be and are you built for that? So you really have to examine yourself. Lucy and I are going to be teaching the wife lessons. It actually starts in a couple of weeks on March 8th. And we talk about being a wife, being a calling. You have to have that pull. You have to have that desire before you enter in a relationship to say, you know what? I'm better under the leadership and covering. I think my skills and my strengths are best served in the family unit with a husband. That's really what I want to that's really how I want to express the best version of myself. And when you make that decision, what happens is your actions and your decisions that you take fall in line and you start to act accordingly. You don't just entertain everybody. You just don't put up with, a man who maybe doesn't have a plan. You like spending time with him, but it's not going anywhere. You start to date with intention because, like I say, the purpose of dating is to determine if this is a suitable match for marriage or long term. All right. So not everybody is a wife and not everybody is a husband. You have to decide if that's you. What would you add, Lucy?
Okay, so my husband is working in the back. So if you hear some barking and the dog's going a little crazy, my apologies, but it's Saturday. So yeah, I would think that it's so important for us women to know whether we are built to take on the responsibility of being a wife. Because again, I don't know how the media or the world has painted the fact that being a wife, it's always about being catered to and you can do whatever you want without the husband's covering. Again, being a wife is always having the knowledge that you are here to be supportive of your husband, to be under your husband's covering. Understand and be grateful for for all your husband does, because everything he does, believe it or not, is for you. You are his purpose. It's so funny because my husband and I, we don't have these talks like you do with your man, because he's like, I've been there, done that. We don't need to talk about it. We've been married 17 years together, 20. So we know what is good for each other. But as a young woman, I remember knowing on my first marriage that I wanted to be married, that I wanted to be a wife, that I wanted to have children for that man. So again, it's got to be you. You have to know that you are willing to do anything and everything to maintain that happy relationship, that happy marriage from the day that you say I do till the rest of your life.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And it's true. It's a dance. We fall into that rhythm. We like having the conversation because it's kind of like, can you believe people don't know this? This is usually how it starts. And then we talk about it. But absolutely. Speaking of talking, let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Let's see who we have here with us today. Again, Jurgen is with us from across the pond. Jasmine is here and she is excited for this topic. Welcome, sweetheart. Just another Mark says, this is a good topic. Most men today don't understand the responsibility we have when it comes to women. I didn't understand this until my late 20s. Women are, in fact, us men's responsibility. Such a great point. And ladies, if this makes you like ball up your fist, in the air, and you're an independent woman and nobody tells you what to do and you're not responsible or accountable to anybody, fine. Remember that when you're me and Lucy's age, when you're 50 and 60 and going off into your later years, that's totally fine. You can absolutely do your own thing. But it makes me think of something that my man said when it talks about the way it used to be, and I believe the way it still is. Our men are responsible for us. This is why they take so long to get to the point where they're like, all right, this is it. If there's a danger, I got to get between you and that danger. All right, this is it. If you get in trouble, I'm going to have to come up with the solution. All right, this is it. If you get, if you have financial debt, I'm going to have to figure out how to work an extra job to pay that off or whatever it is. So ladies, this is why the best version of yourself that you can present authentically, it's easier for you. But what he was telling me is the way ladies just walk out of the house now, looking any kind of way, wearing any kind of thing. He said back in the past, that wouldn't happen because the men would snatch up the other men and say, hey, that's your wife, daughter, sister, whatever. She can't be outside like this. And they would check each other for the women. So ladies, if you want, the days gone by when men were our heroes and they were covering for us and protecting us, that means you're going to have to answer to somebody, because that man is going to have to answer for your character, for your behavior, the way you show up in public. So think about that. So if you've had an experience with a man where he's just like, you know what, I'm going to let you have it. He made the decision, like Lucy says, you're more of a liability and not an asset. And, I'll leave you with this. Mr. said it. It's already a lot taking on a woman. Think about it, taking on a whole nother person. And then if that woman comes with extra problems, that's a lot on top of a lot. So ladies, if you want a traditional relationship, you really have to understand what you're asking for. And are you ready for that? All right, let's go back in.
Won't work out for you, but you'll only figure out that I'm right after years of conflict, heartache, and despair. No bueno. In any case, it's poor selection that is almost always to blame. But that doesn't really help someone who's already in a difficult relationship now, does it? He can't turn back the clock and pick someone else. And even if he could, would he? In any case, I'm going to spend the rest of today discussing the second most prevalent factor common to unsatisfactory relationships. After listening to the arguments and stalemates of hundreds of men, it has become clear to me that a lot of these men were complicit in creating the dynamics of which they complained. Now, they almost always did this unconsciously and unintentionally, but they did it nonetheless. I call this process creating a monster. In my experience, most monsters aren't born, they're created. Let me explain what this looks like using a very obvious example. Have you ever seen a little girl having a temper tantrum in a store because her father wouldn't buy her a toy? Chances are you've seen this happen. If not, it's fairly easy to imagine. Girl says she wants the toy. Father says no. Her eyes start welling up with tears. Girl says she wants the toy. Father says no. The child starts crying. Girl says she wants the toy. Father says no. The child flops down on the floor. Father says no, and now the girl is kicking and screaming. Father says no, and the kid yells, I hate you. Father says no, and the girl threatens to call CPS and report him for child abuse. Father says no, and the kid starts to break and throw things. Father says no, and the girl starts hitting her own head against the floor. Now, the father has done a good job holding the line up until this point. However, if the stakes are now too high, if he suddenly caves and says, fuck it, fine, here's the goddamn toy, just stop it, okay? Then that parent would have created a monster that day. He certainly didn't mean to do that, but that's what he would do when he rewards the child for behaving like a monster. He taught the child the location of his thumbscrew, the emotional experience that he isn't willing or able to tolerate, and functionally instructed her in the behavioral protocol she needs to follow in order to get what she wants.
Ooh, this is so good. All right, ladies. Whew. Let's unpack this one and see what we can learn from it, because it reinforces something I have been saying. Hopefully now you get the you'll get the picture. So we've all seen kids acting out, and you've seen parents that have held their ground, and you have seen parents give in out of frustration, out of shame, out of fatigue, out of whatever. But like he said in that example, when the kid finally breaks dad and says, dad says, screw it, go get the toy, just stop banging your head against the wall, because we're all creatures of habit, right? We all learn by doing. The kid has now said, aha, the way to get what I want from dad is to throw a conniption and embarrass him, and he'll give me what I want. So that may work with a child, but ladies, this is why the men that we want, the resolute men that we want, they're going to tell you no, and that's it. There is no second level, third level, fourth level, 10th level, because these men know that if they give us an inch, we're going to take a mile. That's just how we are as women. We're emotional creatures. So ask yourself again, how did you react the last time your man or a man told you no? Did you just kind of wait and see, okay, let me see if I can, ask another way? Or maybe if I, ask him at the dinner table with company, he'll just say yes because he's embarrassed. Or have you built up a repertoire of the little tricks that you play, the little games that you play to get what you want? Why is this important? Just like in this example with this girl who has now learned, this is how I twist daddy's arm. You ladies are building up a tool belt of tools that work on the men that you ultimately do not want. Because what will happen is you will meet the one and you will take this bad behavior to him, and you're going to try to fall out on the floor, hit your head against the wall, or scream at the top of your lungs, and he's going to leave you right there to have that conniption. And then you're going to be trying to figure out, now what do I do? This has always worked. That is why I say, ladies, if you want relationship, if you want marriage or long-term, you need to exclusively date the type of men that you admire and respect, that their no means no, because even if it's not a love match here, you know how to get on the program, and you don't try these games and miss out on a good thing because you were unprepared for the man that you actually want. What would you add, Lucy?
Yes, and it's important that when you're first dating, especially for men, they will vet you, and the way they will vet you is they'll say no to something, and the minute they see just the childlike behavior, that's a no for them. They're not going to provide you with any reasoning. They're not going to provide you with any whys. They are going to say, this is where it ends, and they move on. Again, men of a certain status, they will not take those shenanigans. They will say it once, and that's it. The second time they see it, they'll say, okay, well, I thought she was the one. She's not. Next. So again, this is not a game for them. And I totally understand why it takes so long for men to make that decision, and to then some women go through the vetting process. And then these poor men are taken to the cleaners because they played a great role, and they kept that mask up to a point, and then they take it off to then destroy the man. That's what men are terrified about now in the modern world.
Absolutely. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. We have the condemned saying, agreed. When my friends would come to me complaining about what their women did to them for the second or third time, I tell them at this point, it's your fault, sir. You still stay and tolerate it. And ladies, I have heard this from my 17-year-old son who has listened to his friends say, man, she does this and she does that. And he's just kind of like, you put up with it. So men are waking up, ladies. And, I will say this, if this has been your behavior, I would say you need to correct it before it's corrected for you, because when they put a stop to it, there's no coming back from that and you won't like it. Discipled One says creating a monster is putting up with behavior nonsense that men allow. That's true. And ladies, if you don't believe me, this is where, again, I say we're not equal, but men have created the world that we live in. All of these modern conveniences, the reason we have the internet, the reason we have computers, the reason we have climate control, all of these things are because men wanted to make the world that we live in comfortable for us. So don't let those modern conveniences make you think that, who are you to tell me anything? Because when they pull back and they say, okay, you go do it, then you're going to be left blinking fast and slow, because let's tell the truth, we really don't want to do it. So if you want to play in this world, you may be playing a game that you will ultimately lose. Next Level says, greetings, ladies. We do not negotiate with terrorists. There you go. There you go. Jasmine says, we as women have to learn to accept a man's no without emotional deregulation. This is our responsibility. Absolutely. And I love what Lucy said about the no. Oftentimes it's a test. One of our biggest sponsors will tell you, my first answer is always no. Even if he has a better plan, the no is to test how the women take a no. Do you keep asking? Do you keep pushing? Do you try again? Do you try to argue him down? Or do you say, all right, and then let him come back with what he wants to do? So ladies, we don't know everything. I'm trying to tell you. Jürgen says no means no, and it stays no, and that's it. So it could be a no. It could be a not yet. It could be a not now. It could be a not this way. Or it could just be a no, and you need to be okay with that if you want a relationship. Jürgen says, and the mother doesn't change anything either. And W says, I think it's dangerous when a man spoils a woman with toxic behavior. Yes, ladies. And we talked about this last week. He gave a great example of a little girl, but this is where, I believe when fathers come into the room, it's just amazing how their presence just cuts the nonsense. Just cuts the pouting, the crying, the shoe throwing. All of a sudden, the kids stand up straight. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When that coach or that father or that uncle or that leader comes into place, everybody starts taking things a little bit more seriously. This is the behavior we have to correct while it's still young. We got Gail, the best moderator on the internet. She says, hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great weekend. Let's go back in.
The father could scold the child with his mouth afterwards, tell her that good girls don't act like that. He could sit down and have a conversation with her about her behavior and get a commitment from her not to behave like that in the future. He could use threats of future punishment to dissuade her from doing that again. But none of that really matters. None of these interventions are really going to work because he reinforced the bad behavior. Contingencies, if you agree in the first time, because the parent has taught her that is how to turn my no into a yes. All the child has to do is make things sufficiently uncomfortable for that parent, and he gives in. And the parent has taught the child that the most effective way of doing just that, in this case, is to hit your head against the floor. Over time, this transforms the child into a monster, which is obviously not good for the child, as no toy is worth such a metamorphosis, and it's certainly not good for the parent, who becomes increasingly angry, resentful, and hopeless. Giving in at that point was the worst possible thing that parent could have done. If the parent was honest with himself and understood that there was something his daughter could do that would cause him to fold, then it actually would have been better if the parent just got the kid the toy when her eyes started to well up. That way, not only would he not have had to deal with a temper tantrum at all, but he would have reinforced a much more manageable behavior as well. Basically, if you're going to give in, it's a good idea to give in as quickly as possible.
All right, so I want to unpack this one and then we'll come back to the chat. So he's talking about how fathers in this case, or how men can, if it's a yes, just go ahead and make it a yes and quit the 12 rounds of all of the foolishness. But here's what stood out to me, ladies, listening to this. It reminds me, so many times I think about the late, great Kevin Samuels and the way he used to talk about older, single, beautiful women. We've all had this experience, right? You all hear me say, I'm happily average, and I am happily average. But when a woman is stunningly beautiful, and you all know a knockout when you see a knockout, it's almost a curse for her. I remember that episode that he had, Diane Carroll, and she had been married multiple times. And in her older years, she was alone because she had finally admitted that she was the one who was difficult. My point is this: when you have things given to you without earning them, you do not develop the real character that is going to sustain you over time. And how many times have we seen this? And I almost pity them, but women who are so used to everything just being handed to them on a silver platter. You're brought to the front of the line. You get the best of everything. Everybody says yes to you. Everybody wants to be next to you. But on the inside, you don't know how to conduct yourself. So what happens is the first time someone tells you no, or you age out of that preferential treatment, because life comes for all of us. We all will age. Beauty doesn't last forever, but your character does. And so, like he said, this is not good for the child, because now this child has realized, okay, instead of asking nicely or saying, Daddy, I really want this toy. How can I earn it? Can I do some different chores? What can I do to get whatever this thing she was throwing a tantrum for? She has learned that the way to get what she wants is to act a fool in public. So that's going to be her one trick pony that she always does. And so, ladies, what can we learn from that? If you have found yourself employing the same tactics that have worked and they don't work anymore, you can ask yourself if what you're doing is the right approach that's going to sustain you over time. What would you add, Lucy?
I absolutely agree. There are women that have not had to raise one finger to get their way because of the way they look. And this reminds me of there's a lot of beautiful women that have gotten older but are alone, and they come out in social media talking about how they feel invisible in the world. The reason they feel invisible is because when they were 20, 25, 30, beautiful, the attention was on them all the time. And now that, as anybody else ages, your body takes a toll. You age, you're supposed to age. Now that attention is not going to them. And they start complaining about that attention going to the younger ones when they were that age. They never complained about that attention coming to them. So again, it's kind of, yeah, well, you're talking about being invisible, but when you had your modeling career back then, you didn't say a word about those women that were already invisible when you were coming up. So again, and it goes back to how we women are, hypocritical when it comes to what benefits us. And because now these older, beautiful women are not getting the attention, now it's the fault of the world and not the fault of the choices that they made when they were on their prime and choosing the man, if they wanted to carry them, to be with them on that stage in life, that they are going to become invisible. But they're not invisible. I'm not invisible to my husband. He makes me his everything again. And that's why these women that say that I don't need no man when they're 25, and then when they get to 50, they're thinking that they're going to get the man when they were the same men that when they were 25 on their prime. Sometimes it's called a little bit, a lot of delusion, because that's not going to happen.
Absolutely, ladies. A little humble pie goes a long way. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Thank you so much, Gail. And thank you all for liking the live stream. This is our community service, our way of giving back, but we appreciate having you all here so much. All right, let's see what you all are saying. Just Another Mark says, I learned in my 20s dealing with unruly women. What happens when you reward bad behavior? You set a precedent, and it's difficult, almost impossible to change such a situation for the healthier. And yes, ladies, this is why some of you may find yourself immediately dismissed because a man saw, oh, I've seen this before, or I know there's nowhere to go but down with this kind of behavior. So you really want to watch that and see if you have what it takes to go the long haul. Because in a relationship, you're going to be told no sometimes. You're going to get feedback that you don't like sometimes, maybe more often than not. All right. So be ready for that if that's what you want. All right. Let's see what else you all are saying in the chat. Hello, JTG is here. NW says, wow, I was looking at it this way. This can help many women to be a better person. Thank you. You're most welcome. NW says, a lot of women grew up in a toxic environment and had these behaviors thanks to the info in a different way. So yes, ladies, you can learn so much from what you see, what to do, as well as what not to do. If you have had moms, aunties, sisters, or whatever tell you this is the way you get them, this is the way you run, game, this is how it works. I have heard women say that you need to talk to men any kind of way and just kind of disrespect them, almost shaming them into getting what you want. Those women are alone today because, like I said, even the lesser men, and we love all men, but even the men that tolerate it at first, even they will get to a point where it's like, you know what? I'm not going down like this for the next 30 years. So ladies, you are on a clock, not in a good way. So if you don't want to be alone, start focusing on the skills that allow you to work with a man over time. All right. Discipled One says, like the way you said that, Maggie, you age out, but your character stays. Absolutely. Yes. Give Lucy a robe. She's preaching. We got the IT consultant here with the $2. Thank you so much for just checking in. We appreciate that. We appreciate you so much. And Jasmine agrees. It is delusion. All right. Let's go back in and see what else he has to say.
On the other hand, the parent could have decided not to give in to the child no matter what. Not if she breaks stuff or calls CPS or screams until she loses her voice. Not if it takes hours and hours and hours of patience and self-control to hold the line. It doesn't matter. If he chose not to give in no matter what, none of the bad behavior, though manifested, would have been reinforced. And this means that it would already have begun to disappear. Like that kid might try those shenanigans a few more times, and it will likely be a very uncomfortable few more times for that parent. But if the parent holds firm, then the kid will eventually learn that shit doesn't work. And the child will eventually abandon that strategy in favor of some other kind of tactic or manipulation because it's not so stupid that it will continue to execute behaviors that don't work and have never worked. Do you understand? Dealing with bad behavior is kind of like the prisoner's dilemma. If you're eventually going to give in, you should give in as quickly as possible. On the other hand, if you're not going to give in, you shouldn't give in no matter what. The reason why so many people end up in suboptimal situations is because they think they won't give in, but they weren't honest with themselves with respect to how they would stand up to escalation. Great. Now let's bring this over to adult relationships with women. Now,
oh my goodness. All right. I want to unpack that quickly before he goes back in. When he was talking about the prison example, of which I never have and hopefully never will experience. But Lucy talked about that. And ladies, it's really true. I mean, when you think about negotiation or those life and death decisions, you need to be prepared. You know what they tell us in an emergency. If a robber comes to you and, hey, give me your purse, take it, take the purse, take the keys, take everything. I just want my life. But if you're sitting there, arguing back and trying to tussle back and forth and all of that, it can escalate into something that if you had just let the car go, let the purse go or whatever, maybe you would still have your life. I know that's an extreme example, but what he said about if it is going to be a no, in this example with the father and the daughter, then you have to hold firm with your no, because that is what retrains the behavior. Because it's only human nature. If I bang my head against the wall and the door opens, like a trained monkey, I'll just continue banging my head against the wall. But if I bang my head against the wall and the door doesn't open, I'll try other things. And maybe eventually I will turn the knob with my hand. So I hate to say it that way, but ladies, what we do what has worked, all of us. So you have to look at your own behavior and say, okay, when somebody tells me no, what is my next approach? Do I get loud at customer service? You're going to listen to me. Or do I say, I'm sorry, this was the wrong price. Can we have a conversation? What can be done? So ask yourself, ladies, have you built up, a repertoire, like I said, of behavior that this is how I get what I want, no matter how embarrassing I have to make it for the other person. This is how I get my way. And again, I will say, you may win the battle. You will ultimately lose the war. What would you add, Lucy?
I agree. And that's, an indicator of if an unruly woman loses that type of emotional control, knowing that you're around, that knowing that that is kind of like your woman, what does that say to her considering your status, you as a man? I can't imagine ever embarrassing my husband or my family name like that just because I didn't get my way. And, it's funny because every time that Kevin Samuels talked to these really unruly women, I think about, okay, I'm going to date myself. The Terminator, when Kyle Reese was talking to Sarah Connor, and he was talking about the Terminator, he said, they're out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity, remorse, and it will not stop ever until it destroys you. So again, that's what those unruly women will do. They will not stop. If you allow them to continue that bad behavior, it's going to be a bad ending for anyone that, that is involved with somebody with that lack of emotional control.
Such a good point. Let's go in and see what you all are saying. But yeah, I'm thinking about this woman that I used to coach who was, unfortunately for her, trying to make it work with a resolute man. And she said she realized she finally could not manipulate this one. Then she came to me to see how to win him over. But by then it was too late because she was used to doing certain things to getting her way until he said no. And my man, he'll say, I'm going to help you mean what you say. If I started acting out, he would take one look at me and be like, you sure you want to do this? So ladies, I'm asking you now before it gets there. Are you sure you want to do this? Jasmine says, I agree, Lucy. It's a delusion. We got Auntie Jenny in the house. Thank you all so much for being here. And thank you for being here. She says, the men here in Barbados thought I was treating them special by respecting and serving them until they met some men who knew my late mother, who informed them that my late mother was the same. Yes, ladies, we all learn how to behave or not, your choice. But once we're grown, it's our responsibility. Jasmine says, do we value what we want more than we value the health of the relationship? That's true. That's why a lot of these, unfortunately for them, beautiful women have collected so many trips, so many trinkets, so many experiences, so many fancy dinners, so many fill in the blank. But is anybody actually emotionally invested in them? Does anybody really care if they're sick or they're not doing well? Or are you just an ornament that's taken out of the box when it's time to show off? So, again, if you are beautiful, wonderful, but just make sure in addition to that beauty, your character shines even more. All right, let's continue on, see what you all are saying in the chat. The Condemned is here for the Terminator reference. Absolutely. Jasmine says, I don't think so. In fact, sometimes we're fighting for something that isn't good for us. Ooh. Ladies, have you thought of that? Maybe that no is because our men are trying to protect us. We get excited. I'll speak for myself. I know I can be impulsive. And sometimes, ask yourself, have you ever been told no to something that later on you're like, I am so glad I didn't go there. I didn't buy that. I didn't do this. I didn't, whatever it is. All right. Next level says this is where self-awareness, self-analysis, and self-correction comes in. We love the analogy. Absolutely. All right. Let's go back in and see what else Dr. Taraban has to say.
Now, in most cases, the first issue is actually caused by the second. That is, the reason why so many women might be poor candidates for good relationships is not because they're like inherently broken, but because they were trained in monstrous behavior by other men in their lives, most likely their fathers or their exes. You're seeing that behavior in your current relationship because it worked in their previous relationships, and she's expecting that you won't be much different. Make sense? Now, don't think that the kind of behavior I just described is unique to dysregulated children. I have seen more than once with my own eyes grown women doing all of those things and more. The kind of shit that can happen in relationships behind closed doors is almost incomprehensible. In any case, it's quite possible that you have seen or will see behavior like this at some point. So the question men need to ask themselves is, how much am I willing to take? Of course, the most common thumbscrew in adult relationships is threatening to leave. Propose to me by the end of the year or we're done, kind of a thing. Many men give in at this point, but like the hypothetical father in the toy store, this is the very worst thing they could possibly do. All it does is make threatening the basis of the relationship more likely in the future. And you can't have a stable, harmonious, long-term relationship with someone who threatens the basis of the relationship every time she doesn't get what she wants. It's just not possible, my dudes. But here's the kicker. She only does this because it works. And why does it work? Because you taught her that it works, my dude. In reality, that guy should have seen the ultimatum coming. Over a long enough timeline, it's almost inevitable. If that man were honest with himself and he understood that he wouldn't be able to emotionally tolerate losing that woman, then he shouldn't have waited for the ultimatum. By acting first, he not only avoids reinforcing monstrous behavior, but he also remains the leader of the relationship and the point of origin of his own decisions as well. On the other hand, if, for example, that man just doesn't want to marry that woman or doesn't want to marry, period, then he has to be willing to hold the line no matter what. And this includes the willingness to suffer the pain of losing any particular woman.
Oh, ladies, this one hurts, but it's true. If you are the type of woman that throwing your weight around with ultimatums and getting your way, this makes me think of these women that have had 6 different proposals like Infinity Stones, if it's even true. I wonder how many of them were a man genuinely wanting to make you his beautiful bride, or did you strong arm somebody to the ground and say, you're going to marry me? Ladies, that's only going to work on a certain caliber of men. It's not going to work over time, and it's never going to work with the men that you want. I would love to know, ladies, if you're listening and you care to share, if you have tested the fence, if you've flown close to the sun and got burned, if you tried some bad behavior that you learned very quickly was not going to be accepted. Gentlemen, I would love to know if you care to share. You know, I think about this, and it's not funny, but ladies, ask yourself, are you the one who, when a man is done having a conversation, you're not leaving because I'm not done talking? Do you block the door? Do you throw things? Do you jump on his back? Like Lucy said last week, do you try to ruin his reputation? Do you try to smear campaigns? Do you try to accuse him of something that you initially agreed to? I'm just asking. And like he said in the video, unfortunately, these types of monsters are created because it's worked before. So it's not good for the men, and ladies, it's not good for us. You're basically playing with fire and you will get burned. So again, focus on your character, because that monster behavior is only for make-believe, not in the real world. What would you add, Lucy?
and it makes you a grown baby. What woman is going to be asking, the man that you think is going to marry you to, give him an ultimatum? That is the quickest way for the man to say, this is the reason I didn't ask her to marry me. And that's going to be it. Again, men let you know whether you are that woman or not. And if you're on the third, fourth, fifth year with the man without even him hinting that you are the one, you are probably not the one.
So true. All right, let's see what you all are saying in the chat. So after the Terminator, yes, you all want the robes because we are preaching and holy water to get rid of the spirits. Discipled One says, when an ultimatum is given, the door swings both ways. Yes, ladies, just really think this through before you play that game. We all know of certain people who play these games with their marriages and then they want to come crawling back and crying back. The man that you want, he was fine before you and he will be fine without you. It may hurt. It will hurt, but men are cost benefit. They do the cost benefit analysis and they look at, okay, not just this tantrum she's throwing right now, but if this is what she does every time she doesn't get her way, I'm not living with this. So they will take that temporary pain for a lifetime of freedom from you. And then you take that bad behavior onto the next one and then wonder why you're not getting anywhere in your relationships. All right. So be very careful because there are some men that will help you mean what you say. Believe me, I know one well. Yerkin says, I don't take any more dirt once and it's over. Y'all know over here. Mr. told me, I'm going to tell you one time in a row and let you figure it out. After then, I stopped asking. All right. So test the fence if you want to. Jasmine says trained in monstrous behaviors is a mic drop. But yes, ladies, like he said in the very beginning of this video, monsters are not born. They are created. So ladies, this is the problem when you expose yourself, you tip your hand. We all show who we really are. Nobody can keep up with the pretense for too long. But I have heard women say, he only gave me 3 months. Or I just coached one who tried to sweep an issue that her man brought up underneath the rug. And she was like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. I thought it was over. And then he cut her off. You didn't change your behavior. You didn't take him seriously. And so that means that, ladies, you have been able to just be like, oh, he'll be all right. And then continue on and get all the perks that you want. Now she's having to figure out and put the pieces together. He really meant what he said 3 months ago when he told you the first time. After that, they're just giving you rope. And like Mr. said, give them the rope. Let them talk. And ladies, he said, either you will tie that rope around my waist and hitch yourself to me, or you will tie that rope around your neck and hang yourself. So it's up to you, ladies. I know it's a little harsh, but that's how the men look at it. Next level says, gentlemen, this is why spoiling your daughters may seem cute, but when things spoil, they get thrown away. Ooh, all right. Girl dads, listen up. I don't have any place to talk to men, but that's what they're saying. The Condemned says, I agree. I am guilty of unfortunately rewarding bad behavior or refusing to check it when it first happened. Men, we got to nip her sassy mess in the bud when we first notice it. Eek! And NW is learning. I'm so glad this is helpful. Discipled One says, Maggie, your cost benefit analysis is correct. If the return is not worth the investment, we walk away. So ladies, what can we learn from that? And thank you, Jimmy. What can we learn from that? You may think it's not that big of a deal. He's not just thinking about the moment. You have to understand men think long term. So he's thinking 5 more years of this, 10 more years of this, 20 more years of this, because if you'll do it once, you'll do it 100 more times if it works. All right. So they're going to stop it from working. Let's go back in and see what else he had to say.
Some women will leave. And in doing so, they kind of confirm your decision, as their behavior reveals that they love what they want more than they love you. So why would you increase your commitment? On the other hand, some women will stay. And if you resolve this challenge successfully, they will learn not to threaten the basis of the relationship in the future. because you've taught them that it doesn't work. And of course, in adult relationships, there is a third option. You, the man, can remove yourself from the relationship. And I don't mean threaten to remove. I mean, just remove. You can just leave. And you can just leave at the first red flag without waiting for the bad behavior to turn into a battle of wills. And you'll start to do this when you stop putting your desire for any particular woman ahead of your peace and your mission and your self-respect. So those are your three options, gentlemen. Either leave, concede as early as possible, or hold the line no matter what. Because if you're not honest with yourself and you mix up those strategies, you're going to have a monster on your hands. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. And please send this episode to someone who you think might benefit from its message, because it's word of mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. And anyone looking to join my free weekly newsletter or book a paid consultation can do so on my website. There's also my book, The Value of Others, and my member community, The Captain's Quarters. The link.
Love, love, love that. Lucy and I have both bought and read Dr. Taraban's book. So let's see how we can wrap this up. So he's telling the men that they have three options. Stay and concede, let her leave, or the men can just leave themselves. And, you know, ladies, I think this is one of the things where we have to really humble ourselves when we think he would never. I'm so special. I'm the best he's ever had. He would never do that. And I think a lot of times women find themselves stunned because now that we have learned what men have to put up with, it makes more sense to me why men have to keep themselves really emotionally stable. I know, ladies, we love the love songs and we love Hollywood movies and Lifetime and Disney, but it is so dangerous for a man to put us above everything else, to put us above their own purpose and all the other things that they've built. Because as emotional and as chaotic as we are, everything can topple down. That's why a lot of times, ladies, when you deal with men of a certain caliber, you're going to be like, man, he's mean, or do you have a heart at all? Mean old mister is here for a reason, but they are letting you know that's not going to work here. We have all had that experience where you go into a building or an office or a classroom, and maybe there is, you know, an officer or that, you know, that old teacher. We all had one. Maybe you had one with the yardstick. I'm dating myself, right? That you walked in the classroom. My old science teacher would walk around with the yardstick. Anybody caught sleeping in the class, whack, right in front of you. And you knew on the desk, but you knew that was not going to happen here. So we have to understand that, you know, if we want relationship with men, because men are the ones that ask, they are the ones that offer, we can either accept with grace or exit with grace. It's going to be on their terms because we are asking to join their world. So again, ladies, you can go a lot farther being, you know, agreeable and just understanding that the world will not end if you get told no. The sky will not fall. Your hair is not on fire, but your relationship will be the better for it when you show that you can take a no and still prioritize the relationship over what you want. What would you add, Lucy?
You're absolutely right. And the world, the modern world, has made women be accountable for nothing. And you know what men are doing? They're just leaving completely. No reasoning, no why, no anything. That's why there's a movement called Men Going Their Own Way, because they would rather be left alone in a cave somewhere doing their own thing and have their peace than live with somebody that will create that amount of chaos in their lives. And quite honestly, ladies, if you see yourself creating that chaos anywhere you go, you need to look into, you know, maybe getting some mental health, somewhere, talking to someone, because that is not normal behavior. A woman that is incapable of holding in leveling their emotions, that's not normal. And that's probably because even when you were a child, nobody sat you down and said, no, You don't do that. The next time you do that, there's consequences to that. So again, the modern world has taught us women that, especially in the Western world, that no matter what we do, everything goes. And unfortunately for you young ladies, men have seen that and they don't want any part of it.
Could not agree more. Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. NW is learning. I'm so glad this is helpful. Jimmy is agreeing. Anwar is admitting he's a repeat offender here. So, ladies, the men are waking up, and they may be the ones to say, you know what, I let it slide longer than it needed to, but it ends today. So be very careful. Ladies, if you got a good one, hold on. And if you know you've been doing wrong, apologize and do better. That's the key. Do better, because men want to see actions, not just words. Jurgen is agreeing 100%. Auntie Jenny says, I never tell my glam daughters that they are beautiful. I tell them that they are intelligent, and intelligent children don't throw tantrums or get spoiled. They get treated the same as their brother. All right. So, yeah, I remember growing up, I never had the daddy's little princess experience. I was told, Maggie, you're smart. You talk too much, but, you got a good brain on your shoulders. I was told that I was beautiful on my wedding day, and I was 25. And I remember it to this day. When my dad saw me in my gown, he said, Maggie, you're so beautiful. That was the first time that I heard it. And all I'm saying is that, ladies, if you have been fed compliments, you're a 10, you're perfect, you're a queen, you're a boss, there's nothing wrong with you. You may not have developed the character traits that are going to last you when that beauty goes away. All right. So less is more. The Condemned says, second time around when I encountered it with a new woman, I made sure to put her on notice. She tried to avoid accountability for a mistake she knew she made. She wanted me to just get over it. No, that's another thing, ladies. We don't get to choose how the other people that we offend are going to respond to it. This is another thing that I see when women, you've done wrong, but you're like, it's not that serious. It's not that big of a deal. You're still talking about it. It was to him. All right. Men are human too, and they deserve the full human experience. So you may have to sit in that mess that you created. All right. We got Next Level coming in at the $10. Oh my goodness, you all are coming in hot. Next Level, $10 says, another great conversation, ladies. Thank you. And salute to the life of Kevin Samuels. Yes, Lucy and I, we remember him fondly. Discipled One, also with the $10, says, love you both and the content you create. The only problems is we need a 2-hour live. Well, we used to do that, but my man said, you can wrap this up in an hour. And I said, okay. Absolutely. Let's see what else you all are saying, and then we are going to wrap this up because I know I don't want to get in trouble. And NW says, I have to do better. And that's the best outcome of what we do. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. All right, Lucy, what would you say to close us out?
Thank you, men, and thank you, young ladies, for listening to this content. It's important because, unfortunately, with this fast-moving world, those are things that were passed on from grandmother to great-grandmother to mom, and that is no longer the case. So we're hoping that somehow it gets through to those who want to do better, like NW.
Could not agree more. All right. So a couple announcements, then we're going to let you all go. Lucy and I have a couple things coming up. We have the Maggie Lou meetup. Again, this is going to be here in Atlanta. We only do it once a year at Eclipse de Luna. Lucy has curated a wonderful menu. It's $50. It is unlimited beer, sangria, and lots of tapas, as much food as you can eat. And it is excellent. We have a private room at Eclipse de Luna. It is going to be Friday, April 4th from 4 to 6 p.m. If you want to come meet us and our students for happy hour, we would love to have you. Tickets are at teachablemomentswithmaggie.com. And we just wrapped up the finishing school today, so we'll take a week off. And then our advanced class, the wife lessons, the wife archetypes, we're going to start that on Saturday, March 8th. That is a 4-week course. Ladies, this is where we teach you how to look for the qualities that make a man husband ready. Because what I see is we go for what we like, and then we try to make that one into a husband. The key is to know how to identify husband qualities and then see, do we like each other enough to be together? All right. The coupon code is in the banner. It's code WIFE for $50 off. But I think we are done. Oh, thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, the IT consultant, for the $2. Thank you, Next Level, for the $10. And thank you, Discipled One, for another $10. We absolutely appreciate it. So we're going to let you all have your evening, and we will say adios.
Adios.
Bye.